Good evening. My name is Cubby S. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Cubby.
I'm experimenting with you tonight. I just had some dental work done this morning, which means I got a new partial. I'm trying to learn how to speak. We'll find out what happens. I'll talk anyway because you can't shut me up. But I'm delighted to be here. It's been a nice day. It was a wonderful ride up, pretty day. Wonderful company. It was just a really nice time. And I love AA meetings. I really come alive when I get into an AA meeting. It's like I leave everything outside somehow. And I just have a ball. I literally boogie at a meeting. And it's a great time because I tend to forget about me, especially when I'm speaking. I just enjoy what happens here. Singleness of purpose is so important, and that's one of the things that we have. You know, healing occurs when minds are joined in a single thought. And when minds are joined in a single thought, healing occurs, I believe, because what we do is awaken ourselves in the mind of God. And so we are literally, I believe, at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, sitting in the mind of God. You have to feel pretty good, man, when you kind of cozy up in there. It's kind of safe. And I've had an uneven week, I'll put it that way. I've been experiencing tremendous panic in my gut, which means that little 5-year-old inside is really frightened about something. A lot of apprehension, feelings of apprehension. I'm not sure what it's all about. And it doesn't make that much difference because, fortunately, I don't have to know what it's about because the answer is always the same. One of the ways I practice singleness of purpose in all of my life, 24 hours a day, is I equate everything with alcohol, alcoholism, and Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I see whatever the situation is or however I perceive it, when I see it's exactly like alcohol and alcoholism, then the way to Alcoholics Anonymous with this particular problem is obvious. And I see my powerlessness and the unmanageability of my life when I deal with any problem. And I see the insanity of my behavior and my thinking when I deal with any problem. And so I have 3 choices as I perceive it. Get drunk, kill myself, or take the 3rd step. I don't know what else there is. You know? If there's something else, I probably tried it and forgot it. Because I'm like most people. I try all these other things before I try what is simple and obvious. And that's the only answer I know, and the longer I'm sober, one of the great benefits of being sober and active in Alcoholics Anonymous is that I see the necessity of the 3rd step much more rapidly than in the past. And I can let go of what has been happening. I take a written 10th step every morning, have for many years. And one of the things I've been finding myself writing, I start off writing my fears and resentments, and then it almost always segues into some kind of gratitude and a prayer, or a meditation, or a revelation sometimes. And I've found myself doing a couple of things lately. Number 1 is thanking God for my disease, because I'm one of the people who know, I don't believe, I know I chose to be an alcoholic. There's absolutely no doubt within me. I chose to be an alcoholic, and for very, very good reason. And so I thank God for that opportunity, and I thank Him for every rotten thing I've ever done, for all the pain I've caused, and I thank Him for the ability to heal that pain and to help eliminate the scars in people's lives that I may have caused. And I also found myself lately forgiving God for all the things that I've done. And one of the things that happens as a result of this is I get to see my disease clearer and clearer. And it always, I don't care what I perceive the problem to be, money, IRS, a busted romance, children, family, whatever I perceive the problem to be, as I write about it, it becomes clearer and clearer that it's just another form of self-centered fear. That's all it is. So I see that thing clearer And I experience that at a much deeper level. There's only two emotions we can experience as people, love or fear. And fear must have a form to be effective. And more I see the form and the nature of my self-centered fear. And then it just becomes almost a matter of course, the segue into the third step and a sense of gratitude, because even with the panic, dreadful panic I've been feeling lately, I have at the same time a sense of solidity and a sense that everything is absolutely perfect. And although I experience a panic here, there is no apprehension here or no fear. And I'm, I don't know, I don't think I'm going to die imminently. I don't know, but I recently had an experience where I knew I was revealed to me that I'm ready to die, and that was very wonderful to experience. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I really don't know what it is, and it's not important because the answer is the same. And what it is right now is just another opportunity to experience the results of this program at a deeper and deeper level. And I just feel wonderful. I mean, that panic is going on. That little boy inside is terrified about something. But I'm fine. Unlike many of you people, my case really is different. Well, no, come on, don't laugh. I come all the way up here. I mean, I'm sincere. And look at me. Can't you see I'm sincere? I mean, I was a Boy Scout, and then you laugh at me. Why want me to feel rejected? But my case is different. You see, I didn't drink in high school, and I didn't drink in college. That makes me different than you. And it was very easy, because I never went to high school, and I never went to college. See, now you can feel sorry for, oh, look at poor Cubby. He never got a chance to go to school. What's the point of going to school when you know it all? I mean, But you don't have to go to school to learn how to drink. It's something that seems to come natural to me. Because, as I say, I chose to be a drunk. So I had to get a head start on my learning. But I love alcohol. I think it's a gift of the gods. It's just so, it's not a coincidence that the word spirit means God and it means booze. Because drinking, for me, is a spiritual experience. Oh, God. Can you remember that? Of course you remember it. That's why you keep coming back, so you don't... Damn right you remember. But I always felt like a scream looking for a mouth. Just always... God, and everything I did was somebody else's fault. And thank God I went to a shrink, and they confirmed it. That's right. That toilet training, no wonder you drank. I mean, So, and I always felt like the battleground of the hounds of heaven and the hounds of hell, and I'm always chewed up with this conflict. I have a profound sense of loneliness and despair with me all the time, and I can't figure this out. And I think the whole world feels the way I feel, and they're smiling and bopping around. I know I'm dying inside. I can't figure this stuff out. And I go crazy. I'm never a part of anything, totally alienated. And I take a drink. Oh, God. It's so wonderful because when I take that first drink, even if I have to force it down, what happens? It opens everything up. And it demands I take another drink. And so I can sit in a very sophisticated manner behind a billboard as a kid, with a cheap bottle of whatever, and drink. And all of a sudden, man, all those billions of little parts of Cubby that are floating around this rotten, stinking, goddamn world, they suddenly start to float around like butterflies and snowflakes. And I hear nightingales and mockingbirds. And they, all of a sudden, they all come together, and it makes sense. Everything makes sense, and they kind of hug each other, all these little parts, and I become a holy, holy man. I'm whole, I'm unified, I'm one real person. And I have a sense of peace that I never knew existed. Oh, God, it's so wonderful. And I look around and I know in my heart of hearts that life is worth living after all. And then some clown says, hey man, you shouldn't drink. Oh my God, really? Shouldn't drink. It's the answer to everything. And people get upset because I black out and try and kill them. Little things like that. That's part of it, you know? That's the chance you got to take when I drink. I just found something out. This is so great. Somebody was talking with some friends of mine who I haven't seen in a long time. And he was asking me, what was Cubby like, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it was. And somebody said, well, and this was back in New York, when he starts drinking tequila and listening to Beethoven, look out. I never knew that. I thought it was always look out. I guess it couldn't have been somebody that knew me too well. But I was willing to pay that price just to experience that sense of peace for a minute and to feel a part of the world and you and the bartender. Just anything was worth it to get rid of that terrible anxiety. So I couldn't accept I was powerless over alcohol. And I couldn't accept my life was unmanageable because if I did it, I'd have to look at why. Why is it unmanageable? And yet, when I was 18 years old, I was taken off a ship in Germany. I went to sea when I was a kid. I left home at 15. And they said I couldn't live more than 2 months. I had TB and both lungs were totally destroyed. And shortly before that, a couple of weeks before I was taken off the ship, I ran half a mile just to get a couple of bottles of wine with no lungs, But the non-alcoholic world says the alcoholic is unmotivated, simply because they see us taking naps under parked cars or doorways. We're resting, We're meditating. We are the most motivated people in the world. Walking on water is a piece of cake for a drunk if there's a drink at the other end, right? I was literally dying, I had no lungs, and I ran half a mile, didn't think anything of it. And it's only, since getting sober that I start to see it a little differently. I had always assumed that anybody would do that. That made perfect sense to me. And by the time I was 22 years old, I'd spent about 3.5 years in bed. I was in the hospital for many years. I had 10 ribs cut out, 1 lung collapsed, a piece of the other lung cut out, and they had used an experimental drug to keep me alive, and it impaired my vision and my hearing. My inner ear was almost totally destroyed. I couldn't walk straight, and I'd fall down in the dark, staggering all over the place, even when I was sober. And all my muscles were petrified from this drug. And then things started to get bad. And that's a guarantee we have as drunks. No matter how bad things appear to be, a drink will make it worse every time. Absolutely guaranteed. But I couldn't accept, even no matter what happened to me, I couldn't accept powerlessness. I could not give up alcohol because it was the answer. Now in chapter 3 it says we have to fully concede to our innermost selves we're alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. Now I was born knowing that in my innermost self. So I had to keep that information away from my awareness. I had to protect my right to drink. So I developed a belief system of lies to protect my right to drink. I taught myself that what is true is false and what is false is true. And one of the things I did to protect my right to drink was use heroin. And I got strung out for 6 years, and that proved to me I wasn't an alcoholic because I only got drunk, maybe once or twice a month when I was using heroin, because if I used heroin and drank, I would throw it right up. It wouldn't stay down. So then what I used to do, because I'm non-alcoholic, what I did was drink first, then use the heroin, and then OD. And I spent half my life in those years in an ice tub with ice packs around me, because I was constantly dying and turning blue. But I figured that proved I'm not an alcoholic. I would do anything to protect my right to drink. So finally I tried to stop using, ended up in hospitals and almost dying. Anyway, to make a long story short, that second step says we came to believe it a power greater than ourselves to restore us to sanity, which indicates to me that we're nuts. And what I did was I left New York and I moved to Hollywood to get away from drugs. And, I hope you're not laughing at me, because I was sincere. I was as sincere then as I am now. I had like a dozen or 2 dozen Dolphin, a plane ticket, and, you know, there I was out in Tinselland. I don't know what's going on. But it worked by courtesy of the LA Sheriff's Department. About 6 o'clock one night in La Cienega, and make this as short as possible, they put a .357 Magnum to my head and said, "We care." And they strapped me down in solitary, and I kicked. It was nice and simple. And they asked me after a couple of days if I wanted to come out, and I said no. I stayed in that cell a month. I felt safe for the first time in years. God, it was such a relief. Oh boy, no decisions to make, no responsibilities. They told me when I could do anything and everything. It was just marvelous. And then they kicked me out and put me with the rest of the population for a month. Then a lawyer came up, bailed me out, and I was in a hospital for a month. And I had 90 days of sobriety. And then they did it to me, and they always do it. Every time I get my life straightened out, they do it to me. And what they did was they kicked me out, and I was back out on the streets. Those streets I don't understand, I don't know, in a world that just drives me bananas. But this time, I didn't have a drink for 90 days. Can you imagine that? Oh, Jesus, God, it was awful. The only way I could cross a street was as if I was going for a drink. The only motivation that got me across an intersection was a drink. I couldn't deal in the world. I couldn't get up enough hostility and belligerence to protect my fear and panic from you. Just couldn't make it. So I just sat and drank wine for 15 months. And one day, the woman I was living with sent home a woman with 3 children. They had no place to live. And we moved them in, and this fellow came to visit her. And one Friday night, he came and he visited with me. I'd never seen this man in my life. And he came into where I was in the room, and he sat down, and he took some paper out of his pocket. Now, as I say, I'm a blackout drinker, so I don't remember too much, but he took this paper out, and he read to me. Now, today I assume they were pamphlets, but I have no direct memory of that. The next thing I remember is he stood up, and he tossed a book into my lap, and he said, "You read to me, I'm tired," which I did. And I have this image in my mind of putting the book on the table and reading aloud to this man. And after every line, stopping and saying something, "Hey, you know something? That's right. This is pretty good. Yeah, that's the way it is." And I kind of gave this thing my stamp of approval because I didn't want him to think he wasn't reading proper literature. So I approved of it. And it turned out in this gray out, I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't believe I read all 164 pages of the text, because I used to take frequent naps in those days. But evidently I read enough to identify with the problem and to recognize the answer. Because he took me to a meeting the following night, and I've been sober ever since. And that was the 29th of March, 1969. Now, a couple of things happened that first night that forced me to believe, from my own experience, something of divine comfort. It was a huge meeting, hundreds of people, 2 hours long, and I hated absolutely everything, especially the people. You know, people, oh God. I never found anything worse than a people. Just, God, what dreadful creatures. And I'm sitting with hundreds of them, and I haven't had a drink like all day. And my head is raging at everything. I just want to get out of there. And yet, when he took me home, I heard myself say, "Can I go to another meeting?" Now, believe me, I had no intention of saying that. I've come to believe that I did not say that. But those are the words that came out of my mouth. I heard those words. And he said yes, and as I said, I've been sober since then. So I'm forced to believe that miracles are possible without my consent. And I'll tell you something, I am very happy to hear that, because given the nature of my personality and my illness, I will forever be at the airport waiting for my ship to come in, you know. And when you thwart my will, I get testy. Oh, man, I can't stand not to get what I want. Oh, Jesus Christ. Dreadful. But miracles are possible without my consent. Because I believe, basically, for a very simple fact. And that's why I don't personally believe in expect a miracle. I don't believe in that. Because there is only one miracle. And I was given that miracle. So the only miracle is the miracle of life. And I did not have to consent to that miracle. Now, I can turn my back on it, which is what I've done. You see, I have denied the miracle of life by believing this is real. And so I don't experience in its utmost and fullest the miracle of life. So I needed the little miracles along the way to help open me up to the basic miracle and to be willing to let go of my old ideas. It's a very simple and obvious process. The learning is actually unlearning. We believe that we're born ignorant, know nothing, and have to get knowledge, information, ability to work, jobs. We've lost sight. We have lost the vision of the miracle. We don't really know that we already have everything there is. We've lost sight of that simple thing. And so to learn is to unlearn the lies I have decided to believe that makes it impossible for me to experience the miracle of life. And when I experience the miracle of life, then I experience the simple truth that I have it, that I don't have to go get it. So I don't expect a miracle, because AA has revealed to me that not only do I have the miracle, but I am the miracle. And the longer I continue with this process, the more in touch I'll become with that, which is a guarantee we have in the 11 steps. So anyway, in the second chapter of our book, it says, in their personal stories, each individual tells in his own words, from his own point of view, how he established his relationship with God. Now that, of course, is the singly most important thing in our life. Over and over we're told, lack of power is our dilemma. We must find a power greater than ourselves. We're also told that we are never cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Not our religious condition, not our psychological condition, but our spiritual condition. And also, it seems to me, that if my disease is incurable, then the symptoms are too. And I will always exhibit, from time to time, symptoms of alcoholism. And when I accept that, it becomes no big deal. But when I try to control the symptoms, when I forget I'm powerless, unmanageable, and nuts, when I undo the first two steps, then there's no need to take the third step. And I am going to control the symptoms of my disease. And I'm going to be good. I'm going to be virtuous. I'm going to be crazy. Thanks, I'm not here to get good. I don't want to get any gooder. I want to get weller, but not gooder. I'd like to share with you how I have received what I consider the 5 most important gifts of my life as a direct result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I say I received these gifts, I don't mean I was given something here that I did not have when I got here. Of course, I know absolutely that I was given everything there is at the day of creation. However, I have this belief system of lies that I designed to protect my right to drink. And not drinking doesn't get rid of that belief system. But taking the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous makes it possible for me to uncover, discover, and discard a little bit at a time of this belief system. and I get to know the nature of my illness, and then there's more room for the recovery to flow through me, and through me and through me. So I'd like to share with you how I receive these gifts, and the gifts for me are the gift of sobriety, the gift of recovery, the gift of prayer, the gift of love, and the gift of a God of my very own. Now, I was given the gift of sobriety that first night. I was rendered sober, and I was unable to drink since that night. So for 30 days I didn't drink. For 30 endless, horrendous, miserable, dark, odorous days I didn't drink. As we know, the only thing worse than drinking is not drinking. The only thing that's worse. So at the end of 30 days, I was stark raving sober. And I was so insane, I asked for help. And I asked for help at an AA meeting. And the help was instantly and automatically there. I didn't understand it at the time. But it's like everything I've learned in AA is so simple and so obvious that I can't see it. But the reason is simply that the answer is in the asking. You cannot have a problem without already having the answer. It's a spiritual impossibility. But I have this belief system, and the answer is blocked off from my awareness, therefore I can't utilize it in my everyday life. But when I come up to you and say, I don't know what to do, please tell me what to do, I've given up. And instantly the answer is available to me from within me. And then as you share with me what you did at that point in your sobriety, you help me recognize the answer in whatever way I need to in order to stay sober for the next 24 hours. And so I asked for help, and you shared with me, and I was given the gift of recovery. You see, when you take away the most important thing in someone's life, you must replace it with something of value. Nature cannot and will not accept a vacuum. Alcohol had become the most important thing in my life, not through desire or design or intent, but by the nature of my illness. I am powerless over alcohol. If it's not replaced with something of value, I'm left with that dark, black, cancerous hole I started with, and I must drink. No choice, no willpower, nothing to morality, to ethics. I must and will drink. And I believe the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is there's something of value that fills that hole and fulfills every need I shall ever have for the rest of my life. I know absolutely that the answer to every question is in the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if the question does not as yet exist, when it does exist, the answer still will be found in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I was given the gift of recovery. And then I'm face to face with this thing called prayer. Now for me that's a sticky wicket because the word God gets thrown around. And the kindest thing I said about God is that it's dog spelled backwards. After my last operation, I was in a coma for 4 days. At some point in that period, I opened my eyes as a chaplain walked in the room, and I stayed conscious long enough, maybe 3 seconds, just long enough to shake my head no and watch him leave, because I was determined that if I died, I was going to die giving God the finger. And if there was such a thing called God, I just couldn't wait to die so I could meet it and spit in its face. Now that's been called an attitude, And AA is the only place I know where you can bring an attitude like mine, which is defined as hostile, and have it turned into a love affair, not by going to church, not by taking religious instructions or studying theology or dogma or metaphysics, but by not taking one drink, one day at a time, and hanging out with a bunch of sober drunks. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I didn't know what to do about prayer, but everyone's saying you have to pray, you have to pray. So I copied the third step prayer and the St. Francis prayer from the book. And I tacked them on the wall, and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd read them. And at night I'd read them and go to bed. And I'd wake up in the morning and I'd read them again. Then it seemed like everybody was saying you have to kneel when you pray, you have to get on your knees. So I tried it. 20 or 30 times a day I would try and get on my knees and I couldn't. It was as if my knees were locked and they would not bend. And then when I was sober 4 months, I took my fifth step. When I finished, my sponsor showed me the pages in the book to read that tells us exactly how to take the sixth and seventh step. And I went home and I did exactly as the book suggests. And when I had taken the sixth step, I was made aware of it. Now, I have come to believe that the essence of the sixth step is simply that when no value is seen in suffering, healing is instantaneous. We are all, or at least everyone I've ever met, willing to give up the pain of a defect. Oh, but it seems like we're not willing to give up the pleasure. We are all, or at least everyone I've ever met, willing to give up the pain of a defect. Oh, but it seems like we're not willing to give up the pleasure. And we have this insane idea that we can give up the pain without being willing to give up the pleasure. You can't. Whenever you seek pleasure, you must find pain. It's absolutely inevitable. You can't avoid it. But we think we can. I am always willing to give up the pain of anger. I think everyone is willing to give up the pain of anger. But how willing are we to give up the pleasure of judgment? What the hell are you looking at, buddy? Yeah? Jesus Christ, if I walked around looking like that, green socks and purple pants. Oh, goddamn fools they let in these meetings. We're not willing to give up the pleasure of judging you and feeling superior to you. Then maybe I can get rid of the pain of the anger that follows my judgment of you, you know. But I can't get rid of the pain unless I give up the cause. And the cause of the pain is my judgment of you and my attacking you. We have this insane idea that we can attack and get rid of the cause of the attack. You can't do it. You can't attack another body. I can't sit here and think these things about you and attack you. I can only attack me, you know. But I think that I can get rid of the pain that follows that attack without giving up the attack. Obviously, you can't do it. But when no value is seen in suffering, when there's no longer any value in my judging you, the anger goes. You just don't get angry. It's all no big deal. And that's, for me, the essence of the sixth step. No value is seen in suffering, and the healing is instantaneous. Just instantaneous. So when I had taken the sixth step, I was made aware of it. Without thinking, it was a totally spontaneous action. I was on my knees taking the seventh step. Sometimes the voices are very lovely. They tickle me. Anyway, and that day I was given the gift of prayer. I've come to believe that the gift of prayer is the most precious gift that we're given by this thing that created us. The book says, in talking about the fifth step, that many of us may have had spiritual beliefs. Now we find we are starting to have a spiritual experience. It starts with the fifth step. A belief is a great place to start from. Without the experience, it's meaningless. It's as if it's hermetically sealed somewhere, and I can never integrate it into my personality, into my innermost self, and thus into my everyday living. It just doesn't happen. I can believe anything I want about alcohol, but until I experience the wonders it does for me and the horrendous horrors it does to me, what do I really know about alcohol? Just don't. But that spiritual belief starts to become a spiritual experience after the fifth step. And with the gift of prayer, this belief starts to become a living entity, a being, a presence, just as exquisitely tender and caring and loving, so comforting. Just feel it breathe a breath of life into you, rock you to sleep. Like last night, I was out of my head. I forgot, I wanted to type something. 11 o'clock at night, I was trying to type something, and I forgot how to use my typewriter. I was going crazy. I've only been typing 35 years, and I couldn't do it. And I just out of my banging my head against it. Only once. I finally just kept screaming to God, you know, and I went to bed. And again, it worked. I just had a very peaceful sleep and so forth. So incredible to know this thing. For it to not be a belief, but a living reality in my life. And it starts with the fifth step. And I believe that from my experience, my personal experience in prayer, that the most I can ask for is to receive what is already given, to accept what is already there. Because I know from my experience in prayer that there's nothing to get, there's only everything to give. And I know from my experience in prayer I don't pray to God, that there is nothing out there to pray to. But I pray from God to God. And as I pray to God, God prays to me, and I become the prayer. And more I start to experience my oneness and inseparability from this power that created me. Because this power that created me by extending itself. So wherever it is, I am. Wherever I am, all of it is. I believe that the prayer that heals, that prayer that mends the broken hearts and sick minds that we bring to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I believe we all get here with a broken heart. I think that distressed me, and to this very moment, that causes me more sadness than my sick mind, is that broken heart. And I believe that the thing that mends that broken heart is the song of love that our heart sings to this thing we call God. And I believe everybody who takes the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous in many different ways sings a song of love to God. And God sings a song of love to us. And with the 11th step, we not only sit and hear that song, but experience the simple truth that we are God's song of love. That song is heard in every heart throughout the world and throughout the entire universe. And there is only one song in the universe. And we are the song. We are. But the 12th step, we're given the most magnificent guarantee any human being can have. This is having had a spiritual awakening is the result of these steps. And again, it doesn't say a religious awakening or psychological awakening. It says spiritual awakening. And in the back of the book, in the second appendix, they take a page and a half to discuss spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. And they talk about tapping into an unsuspected inner source of power. They talk about a personality change sufficient to recover from the disease of alcoholism. They talk about many things. And one of the things it does for me is it demystifies spiritual experience. It's no longer some esoteric event that can only happen under very specialized circumstances. And the word spirit, among other things, simply means essence. The Latin root is spirite, and it means breath. And we're simply dealing with the essence of life, the breath of life. And as the book says, there's only one place we'll find the great reality that's deep within ourselves. And it doesn't say it may or it may not happen. It's a flat-out guarantee. Obviously, you cannot take spiritual actions without having a spiritual result. Obviously, it's impossible. You cannot take the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous without having a spiritual awakening. If you're wondering about it, if you're worried about it, if you're afraid of it, do not have to concern yourself. All you have to do is take the simple action. And it must happen. You cannot avoid it. You can run away from it after it's happened, but you cannot prevent it from happening. And so with the 12th step, I have this incredible gift. A God of my very own. Not somebody else's concept of God. Not some institution's concept of God. And not my concept of God. But a power that has revealed itself to me from within me as a direct result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And wherever I go, all of this power is. I am never without it. I am never without this power. But that doesn't mean that now you just sit and relax. I'll be sober 20 years next month, and I've had 7-8 years of absolute hell in sobriety. I believe that I am a very valuable and useful member of AA. Not because I'm so good looking and very, very suave, but because I have had so much trouble, have made many mistakes, have somehow stayed sober, and have kept dragging my ass back to meetings. I believe that is my value. I believe my failure is my greatest asset today, because I have learned how to survive my failure. And there is nothing more strengthening than the survival of failure. And so I'm a very valuable member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm as strong as a bull because I've had a lot of failure and a lot of survival. I had 7, 8 years of hell, and to the point of I would sometimes lock myself in my room for 2 or 3 days without food or water. I tried to knock the house down on more than one occasion with my head. I went to bed at night praying to die. And in all these years and all this pain, I never once, not for a second, believed that a drink would make it better. And that's not a virtue on my part. It's the power of Alcoholics Anonymous, specifically the second step, because I have accepted the fact that a drink will not improve the quality of my life in any way whatsoever. And finally, after being together for 15 years, my wife left in 1983, actually, I guess, yeah, just about the beginning of 1983. We were back in Massachusetts at the time, and when she left, because we love each other, and she left, and I accepted responsibility for her leaving, because her sobriety and her life were threatened by my illness. Doctors said they didn't know what was keeping me alive, nothing was happening. She expected to wake up next to a corpse every morning for years, and that was the least offensive part of it, because rage and hate was coming out of me like I've never heard before. I mean, it was terrible. Nobody could live with that forever, so she had to leave, and I accepted responsibility for that. And our son, who was 12 at the time, he elected to stay with me, and when she left, I heard sobbing and crying come out of me like I never heard come out of a human being before, and it came from a place so deep within me, I never knew this place existed. It had nothing to do with the body. It was beyond anything I'd known, anything I could touch or sense. And that's because I love her from that place. And she loves me the same way. And that has not stopped. We have accepted the fact that we can't live together. We're like brother and sister. But we will always love each other unconditionally, always do what we can to help each other. And it just like emptied me out. And a friend back here in California said that my son and myself could come stay with him until we could get on welfare. Because I hadn't worked for years because of this illness lasted a long, long time. And I was unable to work for many, many years. And so there was no money. We came back here and stayed with him. And we were back here a while, and my wife called and said she was in love with someone else. And there was nothing left to grieve over by that time. It was just like an empty well inside from that point of view. And I was praying for her one morning, and as I was doing every morning, and it was one of those times where you become the prayer and time and space disappear. And I pray out loud so I can hear better. And I heard myself thanking God that she had someone to love, that she had someone to share her life with, to share her body with, to share her program with, to share her God with. And it precipitated the most powerful experience I've ever had. And for me, it was a dramatic change from my past, because I had never responded to a broken relationship like that before in my life. I will kill over a broken shoelace. And when you do that to me, it just went crazy. And this time, because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was able to, I didn't do it. See, that's the point. I didn't consciously say, well, I will now commit an act of unconditional love. It's like the book says, there are times we have no mental defense against the first drink. I have no mental defense against the onslaught of my illness, any of the symptoms of my illness. But when I'm desperate enough, I will allow God to come through me, and I'll open up a way from which the imprisoned splendor can escape, and that's what happened. It, whatever it is, took over, and it was an act of unconditional love. And my life has changed in many different ways since that time. You see, self-centered fear, as the book says, is the nature of our illness. By the time we're ready to try Alcoholics Anonymous, there's nothing but the I of our disease. I about. We get here totally insulated and isolated in that suffocating, cancerous loneliness of the I of our disease. And it threatens to choke us with every breath. Every breath is going to be the last, and it just can't get any worse, and it always does get worse and worse and worse. And we get here so locked in the eye of our disease, we can't see anything but the blackness that totally surrounds us. And we get to AA, and the very first word of the program is we. It is so great. We admit it. We. The very first word of the program, and instantly the unconditional love of the we of Alcoholics Anonymous starts to chip away at the eye of our disease. I believe the most important thing I know, the most important thing I will ever learn, is I get drunk, we stay sober. There is nothing more important in my life. I get drunk, we stay sober. At the end of the meeting, something happens that I believe precipitates an ongoing phenomenon that is absolutely exquisite. At the end of the meeting, the people here reach out and they hold our hands and they say, "Our Father." You know, nobody says my Father. Our Father. So the first time in years, we're included in this thing called life. We're included in this thing called love. Because the people here have already made the great discovery within themselves, and they share that with us until we in our time and in our way make the great discovery within ourselves. When I got here, you saw past the appearance of my illness. You did not see the raging, drunken beast I believed I was. You saw past that appearance to a sober being. Within that sober being, you saw life, and you saw love. And you nurtured that image of me as you loved me and allowed me to make every mistake I must make in order to learn what I must learn to stay sober for the next 24 hours. And more as I come back to these meetings and to you, I am becoming that image that you have of me, as you are becoming the image that I have of you. And together we are becoming the image God has of us. Thank you very much.